100% sure if I've made the right choice, but we will get on to that in a second. Hey, oh hey, there's people already in the chat, very cool. I can see Shannon and Terry, hi. Yeah, definitely, get a candle on, get some incense going, let's switch it up, definitely. Hey Shah. Hey, okay, I'm just gonna have a little sip of water. So the plan is we're going to talk about the astrology of May, the main themes that are happening in May. Slight spoiler alert, May is definitely more chill than April, which probably everybody is glad about, because April was kind of a lot, you know, with that eclipse energy. To be honest, it's been quite a lot since the start of the year. So we've had that kind of very big kind of like impetus, emphasis happening since the start of the year, which is kind of it is continuing, but we've got like a little month of kind of consolidation now, which is, well, I think really, really lovely, really necessary. So I've made some like kind of key points that I want to share about the main themes for May. So we'll talk about those. I'll also pull some cards at the end, maybe with the deck that I pulled out, maybe with a different deck. We will see when we get to that point. And we can talk about that as well. So if you have any questions and things like that, then I will try and keep an eye on the chat as well. So I can see a couple more people come in. Nice to see you. So yeah, we'll cover all of that, the main things. If you want a more kind of like blow by blow account, then I have made a blog post about the astrology of May, which goes through pretty much like every transit that is happening through the whole of May, and kind of what it means basically. And once I finish this video, I will add the cards to that as well. So we'll have the blog post and the cards. If you've been following me a while, then you know I've been doing these for a couple of months now. So it kind of brings it all together. So I haven't been able to post the blog post yet because I haven't pulled the cards yet. So that will be available afterwards. If you'd like to get it, I'll try and put a link. There should be a link actually already in the description, because it should like automatically add that description into the video, where you can sign up for Moonday Magic Mail, which is like a weekly email which gives you like a breakdown of the astrology of that week and practical things you can do with it, and journal prompts and things you can do to work with the energy. So if you sign up for that, the link for the blog post will be there, so that you won't have to like remember to kind of look on there or anything. But if you're watching this later on, if you're watching the replay, then I should have linked the blog post down below, hopefully, if I remember. So I've got my notes. I kind of also want my honeycomb, because I want to show you, let me grab that a second. I want to show you the month of May here. This is my honeycomb planner, which is like a personalized astrology almanac made by honeycomb.co, who make these beautiful personalized planners. And they give, at the start of every month, they give an overview of the month. And even if you don't know very much about astrology, which is fine, you know, you don't need to watch these, I'm going to talk you through it. But I know lots of you are also like astrologers or learning astrology here. You can probably see this is Taurus here, and look at all the planets that are kind of passing through Taurus while we're here. So this is something that's kind of been happening this year for a while. So everyone's lighting their candles, that's cool to see. People saying hello. I can see lots of members in the chat as well, which is really nice. So it's always nice to have some friendly faces here. So this year, like quite often with astrology, we have planets spread out quite a lot of the time. Like, yes, they do get together on occasion, you know, but a lot of the time they're kind of doing their own thing. Like, you know, like Jupiter might be in Pisces doing this, and Saturn is in, like, I don't know, like in Aries doing this, you know, and they kind of, there's lots of different kind of themes and stuff going on. Whereas for the last few months now, the planets, like not all of them, but the majority of them have been very closely grouped together. And so it's almost like all, like whatever your personal astrology is, your natal astrology is, everything is kind of like condensed, and everyone seems to be working on very similar themes, because I feel because of the planets have all kind of been very close together like that. So now with lots of the planets ingressing into Taurus, like we're already in Taurus season, which means that the sun is in Taurus, and you know, we've got other planets there too. We've already got Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, which have been there for a long time. That's been a really big story this year, and it's kind of continuing as we go into May, but this will be the last month where that conjunction is still kind of present. We've also got Venus is going to be going into her own sign of Taurus. We've also got Mercury in Taurus. So we've got a lot of Taurus activations going on. And like I said, that's kind of been the theme. So like at the start of the year, everything was kind of in Aquarius, and then everything was kind of ganging up in Pisces. And then we had everything in the Aries last month. And now we've got everything in Taurus. So I'm seeing it manifest. I don't know how you are finding it as well, but I'm seeing it play out in lots of people around me, is that everyone is kind of very concentrated on certain themes, even like I say, not independent of their own natal astrology. So when we were having all that stuff with the eclipses in Libra and in Aries, in that kind of those signs of self and other, I've seen so many people have like relationship breakdown, or kind of just like realizing that they need to like realign themselves in their relationships. And last time we came up with the keyword of self-centered when we were talking through the astrology of April, and we said we really kind of need to center ourselves in our lives, basically, you know, like be the main character in our own lives. That is the idea. That's the focus of what we've been working on. And that's really hard to do when we've been conditioned to kind of put other people's needs and things first. And so we've had all these like, well, let me know, how did it go, you know, with the eclipse? And then with the Scorpio full moon was a really big like gateway, really. And it's given us a chance to sort of reach inside ourselves and pull out the things that are like not aligned, which are misaligned with where we are now. And you know, these are often behaviors and things that have served us in the past. It's that old cliche, you know, it's like this served me in the past, which is why I'm still kind of reliant on this behavior, but it's actually holding me back now, and I need to be able to like bring this to light and examine it and be like, okay, what is this? And that Scorpio full moon was just so much like that for me. It was like, okay, I'm bringing this out and I'm bringing this out, and I can start to look at it and be like, okay, this like kind of wriggly maggot that I found in there is not something that I want to have inside me anymore, and I want to be able to pass it on, and well, not pass it on, to pass it, like to give it away, really grieve it, you know, and let it metabolize into something new, maybe like metamorphose into a butterfly or something like that instead, you know. So that's the deep work we've been doing. Like Scorpio is linked to the death card in tarot, so it is that kind of transformational death work. But now we're moving into this Taurus period. So like I say, we've got all, and this is the first main theme I wanted to talk about for May, is this concentration of stuff that is going on in Taurus. So we've got Jupiter and Uranus, so we'll talk about those in a second because that's something that's been ongoing. We've got the Sun. So when the Sun moves into Taurus, when the Sun goes into Venus's sign, in the Northern Hemisphere, it corresponds with like when spring really comes into flow. And it's a time when usually if you've like started seedlings inside, you can start to put them in the ground now because the ground has started to warm up. It's still fairly cold and fairly kind of dreary a lot of days here in Wales, where I am at the moment, but it feels different, you know, like the birds are singing earlier. There's a lot more light for a start, you know. It's like the light really does start to, you really notice the difference. And if you celebrate the Wheel of the Year, you know, it's the time of year, the season of Beltane is on us now, where we are kind of shifting into summer mode, you know. The summer's not quite here yet, but we get you can kind of feel that it is going to come. And so when we have got that Sun, the Sun in Taurus, lighting up Taurus, Venus's sign of Taurus, which is her Empress expression, Venus in her Empress expression, is really giving that kind of like earthy, abundant, hopeful, and it is soothing. And I really feel like we're going to need that kind of soothing, stabilizing, grounding influences to stabilize ourselves, really. As a keyword, I'm not sure if this will definitely be the keyword, but when I was thinking about what it would be like a kind of focus for this month, I've written home ground. It's that idea of being kind of grounded, of being safe, of ourselves, of our bodies, because like Venus and Taurus, very, very focused on the body, being embodied, which is something that really came up for me around that Scorpio moon. So I'm like, okay, I'm working on the body, releasing things from the body, calming the nervous system, all this kind of stuff. And I think with Mercury going into Taurus as well, there'll be a chance to kind of work on that communication with the body as well, because with Mercury being communication, moving into that sign of Taurus, of the kind of physical embodied self, it'll give chance for those kind of communications from the body too. So that's something that I am looking forward to, and also kind of like mindful to keep an eye out for as well. Yeah, so home base, grounded, home ground. I couldn't quite hit on an exact kind of like succinct way of saying it. How does that sit with you at the moment? Is that how you're feeling? Like, is that what you've been working towards with the energies that have been going on? Shannon says, I did notice the birds singing this morning, which helped motivate me out of bed. Yeah, so much so. The light and the birds, I think, is so much easier to start like moving our bodies. We start to kind of get a little bit lighter. There's also lots of plants around most of us, like if you're in the northern hemisphere now, a lot of plants are growing which are really good tonics as well, which enable us to kind of get those juices flowing and kind of get a little bit of a cleanse going on as well. So like if you have nettle growing near you, then you can, you know, as long as you're sure it's not sprayed with anything, then you can pick that and start putting it into like smoothies or something like that. Cleavers as well is another really good plant for just kind of helping your body to cleanse and be ready for the new season, for the summer. Brandy says, my family's moving house. Shannon says, is what I'm wanting for sure. So do you mean that idea of like home base, of grounding? That is something that, yeah, I think we're going to get a handle on that. And our home base as our bodies. So maybe even like embodied or embodiment might be a really good keyword as well for this period of time, because it is that idea of safety in our bodies. And yeah, that kind of like nervous system calming, that safety. I am safe here in myself. And then, you know, like we can ripple that out then to our kind of larger areas and our spaces around us. So yeah, that's something. And interesting to say about moving house, Brandy, as well, because that kind of physical space, that moving physical space is something that is very Taurian in a way as well, you know, kind of like establishing your property, your space, and your boundaries. Boundaries is something, you know, like when we're talking about space and demarcation of space, in order to demarcate space, we need to recognize a boundary, because otherwise it's just all one space, isn't it? You know, there's just like everything flows into everything else, and there's no differentiation between what is this and what is this, you know. And while that is kind of like true on a kind of greater soul level, it's true that everything is just connected to everything else and there are no boundaries. When we are incarnate in this physical world, which we're in, we need boundaries, because that's kind of how the physical world is organized. So I feel like this idea of safety is very connected with that idea of boundaries as well, you know, of saying, okay, this is my space, this is your space, you know. It's that kind of it's demarcation of areas, you know, and that's all boundaries are really. It's just saying like, right, this is something that is for this, and this is something that is for this. And it's not saying like, the boundaries can be really triggering. Like I find them really triggering. It's something that I'm actively working with, because I want to be able to just like give and give and give and give, you know, and have no boundaries like that. But then I also get resentful if I feel like people are taking and taking, you know. So it's not healthy to be like that in this physical incarnation, you know. So yeah, I'm trying to think about that kind of sacred space, and the way that we can keep space sacred, we have to demarcate boundaries as one of those things. Siren says, we're not allowed to forage in the cities. Okay, that's interesting. Nettle tea is wonderful for moving negative energy from the body, especially if you're an empath. Yeah, and it tastes so good as well. Like if you don't, like sometimes if you like really brew it for ages, it can be really intense, but it's nice. It's like refreshing. I like to combine it with mint sometimes as well. I think that's a nice, you know, like with just garden mint, but it's really like shitty that you can't forage in the city. Like, why not? What is the, you know, and I'm kind of like, well, who's gonna know? If there's nettles in areas around you, I'm sure. And like nettle, it's not like you're picking something that is not gonna re-establish itself. Nettle is so prolific, is literally everywhere, you know. You're not gonna decimate a population of nettle by picking a few handfuls of nettle, you know. So Tanya says definitely the same with boundaries. Yeah, I think it's something we're going to be working on. I think it's probably something that we'll be working on in the membership as well, because I've been thinking about that idea of sun and how that connects with boundaries. But yeah, I won't go into too much of that now, because I know this is like a general, we're talking to everybody here on YouTube, even though there are lots of members here as well. So yeah, it's boundaries, safe space, Taurus, think empress vibes, think goddess vibes, think that kind of earth goddess vibes, you know, because when we get Venus's other sign, Libra, is much more kind of like rational goddess, almost like sky goddess in a way, whereas the empress is very earth goddess, very grounded in the self, grounded in place as well. So like connecting with our places, our spaces around us is something that is very needed, you know, needed for us and also needed for those spaces as well, because humans have just like fallen out of connection with these spaces, with the we're supposed to be like not even like custodians of the land, like maybe stewards. I don't know what the right word is. We are supposed to be almost like our guardians, protectors, but it's not like, it doesn't belong to us. It doesn't belong to us. We are co-present with it, and we should tend it and befriend it, you know. It's that kind of idea. We're in relationship with the land. We shouldn't be like kind of dominating and taking what we want, kind of thing. Yeah, that's a good point about not sure about trusting city nettle anyway, especially if there is you know, like there's a lot of traffic or pollution and stuff nearby. The only thing you got to watch if you grow your own nettles is that they do kind of take over as well. So maybe put them in a pot, although they do send a seed everywhere then as well. I'm always like trying to get rid of nettles out of my garden because it's like they'll pop up whether I want them to or not. Yeah. Yeah, I think generally like if you are kind of near woodlands and stuff like that, you can pick them quite safely without worrying about them being sprayed. But if you are anywhere where they might like mow and stuff, then yeah, obviously keep caretakers. Oh yes, thank you, Terry, that's perfect. Caretakers, but not in the sense that we are we're temporary caretakers while we're here. Yeah. Listen, I've got so much nettle in my yard. Maybe we should send some to Siren. If anyone lives close, Siren's in Canada. If you've got some safe places where you can pick nettle, some fresh nettle, you could always like wrap it up and send us some, or dry it and send us some dried nettle, which would be really nice. You can obviously buy it as well. You can buy like organic nettles and things like that to make tea as well, can't you? But yeah, the idea of cleansing, anything green really is cleansing, you know. So you could do like smoothies like spinach or something like that as well. But yeah, nettle, if you can add a little bit of something like that in. Cleavers, I like to use nettle and cleavers in smoothie. I think it's kind of got the soothingness of the cleavers with the spiciness of the nettles. It's a good combination. Okay, back to the astrology. So yeah, we've got the sun in Taurus, which we talked about. We talked a little bit about Mercury in Taurus. So Mercury has been retrograde. It's now in direct motion again now, but it is still just moving out of its shadow period, and it is going to cross over into Taurus. And what date actually is that going to happen? I got that blog post in front of me, the one that I haven't published yet, but will be up soon. It's quite soon into the month, I think. When May 15th. So it's kind of like a month of two thirds and then 1/3 May. It's like the first couple of thirds of the month are very Taurian in energy, and then the sun moves into Gemini in the second half of the month, and it becomes a lot less grounded because the planets are all kind of in, well, not all, but you know, planets are moving into different signs then and expanding the air energy instead rather than the earth energy. When we got that Taurus earth energy, is much more grounded. So I think like any work that we can do in the first 2/3 of the month to get really grounded and really regulated and safe will stand us in good stead for when like we get into that kind of airy mode for the last third of the month, and also into June then, you know, into kind of like loads of ideas, lots of head stuff going on, but we don't want to forget about our bodies. So I feel like we've got this preparation time for our bodies in this first part of the month, so we can really drop down and center into our bodies, and then we're ready for when we get into Gemini season and it's all like, hey, you know. And sometimes lots of things going on as well, like events and parties and things like that can start to kick in, and like the weddings and things over the summer and stuff like that as well. Oh, hey Michelle. Yeah. Oh, people talking about where they are. That's cool. So yeah, Mercury in Taurus. So Mercury is all about communication. Like I said, it's been retrograde, so we've had that kind of revisioning time now going forward. And so when we think about communication and moving into Taurus, which, as I've said, it is to do with the body, then we've got that idea of communicating with our bodies. well, I'll talk for myself. I have a tendency, and I have witnessed this in other people as well, to kind of like tell my body what it should do. It's like, oh, I should do this now, or I shouldn't do this. Like, I shouldn't eat this cake, or I should go for a walk, or I should exercise or something now. It's almost like my head is the boss of my body, but actually that's not true. You know, my body has got so much wisdom, and that is what this is about. You know, this first 2/3 of this month is about accessing that body wisdom that we've got and letting our body tell us. And like, it tells us quietly first of all, and then if we ignore it, it will get louder and louder, you know. So you might get things like chronic pain, which, you know, is hard, but we're so conditioned to just kind of push things down. But when we do push things down, push down feelings, push down experiences and things that have happened to us, then they do kind of literally get contained in the body. I feel like I'm always talking about that book, The Body Keeps the Score, over the last couple of years. I read it a couple of years ago. I need to, and I want to reread it again and get some more wisdom out of it this time around. I'm planning on doing that in this like Mercury and Taurus part of the month, because I just feel like that's really aligned with that. But that's the idea that our body literally keeps a score. So anything traumatic that happens to us gets stored inside our body, unless we work through it. You know, there's definitely ways that we can work through things as they happen to us, and then they don't get stored. But usually by the time a lot of us are adults, we have kind of internalized a lot of this stuff. We've taken this stuff and stored it in our bodies, and we need to be able to find ways to access it and to allow it to come back out, to dissipate, you know. And I feel like that's part of the work that many of us have been doing around that eclipse, because a lot of the blocks in our connection with ourselves, our relationship with ourselves, and then our relationship with others is like a basic kind of, it comes down to self-worth, a lot of it, of like really believing that we are worthy and that we are important. You know, that's why we've been working on being self-centered, because we don't always feel like we're important. We are important. We are the main character in our lives. We should be. We should be centered in our lives. We are the sun in our lives. And when we can feel that and believe it, it makes it much more easy for us to be able to access anything that doesn't align with that in ourselves and start to bring that out. Oh, is that what we've been talking about in book club? There's some of the good somatic experiences. Oh, okay. Thank you, Kate. Outside of the Body Keeps the Score. Yes, please. If you could recommend some other books that are connected with that. I have got one other one actually. What on earth is that one called? I can't remember. It's like been under my bedside table for ages. So I should pull that back out really. But yeah, I can't think what that's called, but that's another one that was actually very good as well. So maybe I'll dip back into that. But if you've got some more recommendations, then yes, please. Tanya's, I'm laughing at how the astrology is echoing the reading. Yeah, and it always does that. It's so funny when I'm doing like personal readings for people. It's like, oh yeah, this is coming up now, and this is also coming up in the collective. And like I said, because of the way all the planets are so concentrated this year, or since the end of last year really, it seemed even more like that than usual, because everyone is kind of working on very similar stuff right now. Yeah. Michelle said, do you offer medical astrology sessions around this? I've had hip problems since having my kids and would love to get any astrological perspectives. That's a really good question, Michelle. I think it was over a year ago now, maybe even 2 years ago, I finished, I got like accredited with medical astrology as one of the astrologies that I study. And I haven't added it onto my website as one of the possible readings. And the reason for that is because I haven't quite like found, it's tricky. I've done a few readings for people, and if I'll have a word with you about it, Michelle. We can have a chat about it. But I didn't really necessarily want to offer it straight up as a thing, because sometimes people can get very, understandably so, kind of like extra worried about their health. And so I feel like it's so sensitive an area that I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about it, how I would like do those sessions. I don't think I'd want to do it as a recorded session. I'd want to do it as probably like a face-to-face session with somebody, so to be able to kind of go through those things, because sometimes it's really triggering, you know, when things come up around, things are really triggering when they come up around our bodies, you know. That's one of the things I think that I'll be working on definitely over this month. Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at, yes, fraught. Fraught is a really good word for it. But if we're working on our home base, then that is something that we should be working on, isn't it? The kind of physical alignment and stuff like that. And like the somatic stuff, I know, Kate, you have been looking into the somatics and things. I was talking to Lindsay as well. She's in our circle. She was working with me on doing some physio and like working with somatics around pelvic health, and she's really lovely. And I was talking to her about potentially offering like a workshop, but she's kind of gone a bit quiet the last couple of months. I know she's got quite a few things going on in her personal life as well, so yeah, so maybe she'll come back to me. That'd be really cool. We could have kind of like a workshop maybe in Circle of Kindred, or yeah, we'll figure out a way of doing it if I can make that connection with Lindsay. But otherwise, maybe, yeah, I can reach out to somebody who does like somatics or something. We can see if we can bring someone in to help with that. I've also been looking up lots of things to do with like nervous system regulation as well. There's lots of like drills you can do to help to regulate your nervous system, and some of them are really like simple in a way, like you're kind of crossing things over different parts of your body, things like that, and helping to release it. But yeah, the medical astrology is definitely something to look at as well, but it's more kind of diagnostic in a way. Like it doesn't necessarily show you how you're going to heal that, you know. But a lot of the time the healing of it is like recognizing what the problem has come from. When it's hips, it's usually to do with like moving forward, like kind of feeling like you want to move forward but also feeling afraid to move forward. So yeah, that's and it can vary depending on which hip it's in. Yes, please, Kate, please share. And like maybe if you don't share in the chat now, you can maybe make a post in the Circle of Kindred. If you people, I think most of you are like kind of from the Circle of Kindred anyway, but if you're on Facebook, it's a lovely community where we kind of chat about all the kind of witchy stuff and astrology and things like that. So yeah, if you want to kind of join us, the link for that should be in the description as well. Yes, joys of womanhood. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Emotions stored there, definitely. But it's like, why are those emotions stored there as opposed to somewhere else, isn't it? And that's where that kind of the body keeps a score, and the other kind of somatic stuff helps with that. Yeah. So let's talk about the Jupiter-Uranus thing then, because we haven't quite got there. We talked about the Sun, we talked about Mercury, and we've got Jupiter and Uranus. So Jupiter has been in Uranus. Jupiter has been in Taurus for almost a year now. Uranus has been there, I think, since 2018. Did I write that down? Yes, 2018. Oh, well done. I did write it down. Well done, me. 2018. And so when Uranus moved, like the planet kind of like sudden changes, moves into Taurus. I've talked about this, it feels like ad infinitum. And it's going to be there till 2026. So like it's a big, because Uranus moves so slowly. It's one of the almost the last planet in the solar system, so it kind of moves very slowly around. So it stays a long time in each of the signs. But when we get that kind of disruptive influence in Taurus, it's trying to disrupt those kind of earthy Taurian stuff. So it's disrupting stuff that's maybe stored in our bodies. It's disrupting our food chains. It's disrupting our energy, like our power, those kind of things. And also the weather, you know, the kind of like physical earthquakes and things like that have been more prevalent while Uranus has been in Taurus. I don't have the actual facts on that actually, but it feels like, I don't know if you've been watching the news, I seem like I'm seeing a lot more of that stuff, which could be confirmation bias, of course, but yeah, like the weather seems more unpredictable since we've had Uranus in Taurus, and like that is most likely tied in with climate change and things like that as well, of course. But yeah, I mean, that's how for me astrology works. It's a mirror to what is going on Earth. So it's not that it's controlling us. It's like, oh, Uranus is going to move into Taurus and it's going to make this happen. No, we see Uranus move into Taurus if you've got a telescope, because you can't see it with the naked eye, and we feel the mirror of that in us, you know, or maybe our feelings are what moves Uranus into Taurus. You know, it gets a bit like, okay, how does it all work? But it's basically because we're all part of one organism. We're all part of one animate universe, and so some parts are doing is reflected in the other parts. You know, the whole is reflected in the parts, and the parts are reflected in the whole. It all kind of layers up like that. So yeah, Uranus has been disrupting things in Taurus, and then a year ago Jupiter went in there as well and started kind of making ground on heading towards Uranus. And Jupiter tends to magnify things. You know, it's a really big planet, and it's like, ooh, you know, it wants to do positive stuff, but mainly it wants to magnify stuff. So it can magnify kind of good things and bad things. From a medical astrology perspective, you know, if you get Jupiter in certain signs and things like that, it can make for like big body parts as well, you know, things like that. Like if you get Jupiter in Cancer, you know, if you've got that as in your chart, then sometimes people will have big breasts, or sometimes they'll have big bellies. You know, it's got that larger, enlarging quality to it. And so Jupiter is tending to amplify those Uranus significations, that disruption, so making more disruption. But it also brings a kind of like lucky, almost like a kind of charmed perspective to it as well. So it, instead of making it kind of like scary changes, it usually makes them big, sudden changes, but also ultimately positive changes as well. So that's why this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction has felt really like exciting and also challenging, but ultimately is going to leave us changed, and it's going to have us feeling it's disrupting the ground. So it is like stirring up the ground and letting the things that are trapped become more accessible so that we can heal them more quickly. Whereas like normally things that are kind of stored and trapped are more difficult to access. So I think, you know, it's such good timing for doing this kind of inner work where we're bringing these things up and challenging them and changing them. So we've got that, and that's this conjunction, even though the exact conjunction has already happened, they're still in the same sign, and they're still in the same sign until, when did they move out? I think like, is it the 23rd? Did I write that down? So it's basically in the, like that last third of the month, Jupiter's going to move on from Taurus and move into Gemini. And so rather than expanding that kind of Taurian energy, it's going to be expanding that Gemini kind of playful, also sometimes kind of like a lot in your head kind of energy, you know. So yes, that May 25th, thanks Liz. Yeah, so at the, you know, in that sort of last third of the month, that's what's going to be happening. So basically I'm telling you this because I want you to make the most of the time when Jupiter is still in Taurus, because even though it's not like tightly conjunct Uranus anymore, they're still, you know, they're still fairly close together. They're still in a sign-based conjunction. So continue to work with that disruptive energy, bringing this all out, and you'll be able to have some like it is very much breakthrough energy, and it's breakthrough energy in that realm of the physical, of the body. So, you know, yay, I think that's really, really exciting, really good. Yeah. Also actually in finances as well, you know, it's anything to do with like resources. So if you know, like if you're not having issues with things stored in your physical body, you might be looking more at like resources, or like moving house and things like that. It's changes in those areas. Yeah. So people are having a conversation, but I don't know what it was about. So I'm just gonna, I can't catch up with that now because I can't see those things. So what else is going on? Yes, so we've got a big activation of this energy happening in that new moon in Taurus. So I'm going to make a video for the channel which will be about that new moon energy and how the new moon is falling really close to Uranus in Taurus, and it's also activating, you know, the other planets that are still there, Jupiter and Venus, and yeah, I didn't mention about Venus being, but we'll talk about that in a second. Because Venus is there as well in Taurus. We haven't talked about that yet. So on that new moon, that is like kind of like the key window for doing this kind of like activation, moving on that stuck work. So if you've been working on things to do with finances, if you've been working on things to do with your body, key time to be able to like really have a breakthrough in that area. A really exciting breakthrough. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Yes, I said points to new beginnings in personal values and finance. So personal values as well, like your ethics, how you understand yourself, which definitely is going back to that eclipse energy as well. We're kind of still consolidating that eclipse energy. Yeah, I have a little sip of water thinking about that. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, do you know what? I want to talk about Mars and Venus together. So we've got Venus into Taurus. So Venus is going to be in her home sign of Taurus. So when Venus is at home, she is like extra strong. because she's at home, you know, she's got all the nice stuff around her and she's used to everything and she understands how it all works, you know. So Venus is going to be adding her blessings to that area in this period of time as well. So we've got that lovely grounded Venus. The Empress is on her throne, you know. Venus is home in Taurus. We've got that gorgeous grounded Taurian energy helping us with that. And also interesting this month, we've got Mars moving into its own sign of Aries as well. So when planets are in their own signs, you know, the same as for Venus, when Mars is in Aries, it is at home in Aries. It understands the terrain, you know, it understands how to act, how to behave. It understands the lay of the land kind of thing. So Mars in Aries is yes, extra direct, but it's direct in an overt way, you know, not in a covert way. So I feel like that's also going to give us a nice like fiery bit of boost and drive as well. So yeah, planets in their home, in their own signs, I think it's straightforward. That's what it is. It's uncomplicated. And so we've got that lovely Mars in Aries assertive energy. We've got that Venus in Taurus grounding, blessing energy, that kind of divine feminine. So it's almost like the divine masculine, divine feminine as well, actually. Yeah. So like Mars in Aries sometimes gets a bit of a bad rap for being like aggressive, but it doesn't have to be, you know. You can just use it as assertive rather than aggressive. Yeah. I can see people are talking crystals now. I want to see. I want to see what's going on. Siren's been helping me out with sending me some crystal recommendations, which have been really helpful. So yeah, if she's making recommendations, then definitely jump on that. Yeah. So we've got that Mars in Aries assertive home in Aries. And we've got that, all that stuff happening in Taurus. Okay, so let's talk about Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So this was another one of the big themes I wanted to talk about. So Pluto moved into Aquarius at the beginning of the year, you know, big fanfare. Everyone's kind of talking about that idea. Again, Pluto being like the very last planet, or maybe not even a planet now according to astronomy. But it's very slow moving. It's like it's a generational effect. So it has it's in a sign for a really, really long time. So it moves into Aquarius, and rather than it being in that kind of Capricorn grounding energy, it's moved into Aquarius, which has started to stimulate that kind of like humanitarian, but also kind of more thinky, more collaborative, more innovative kind of vibes. So Pluto being the planet of like death and rebirth is helping us to unearth those like deep-seated beliefs and things like that, you know, that kind of whole it's dredging things up in the way that we think, especially in the way that we think collectively. So as that we think as a collective is bringing those things up. And so it's moved into Aquarius, like I said, at the start of the year, and now it's going to go retrograde for the first time since it's moved into Aquarius. So Terry says Pluto will always be a planet to me. Yeah, same kind of, you know, it's like it's hard to demote it afterwards. And Michelle said, I appreciate the insight about Empress energy. I pulled her as my signifier yesterday, and so it makes sense. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. And Libra is also connected with the hips in medical astrology, so that's probably something interesting to work with as well, Michelle. So Pluto direct is very much like kind of bringing things to light so that we can heal them. When we get Pluto going retrograde, it's often a signal that like there's still more work to be done around that, and we're going to need to go back and kind of rethink and rebirth, you know, with that death and rebirth energy. So it's like kind of meditating on the death card, and perhaps even meditating on the death card reversed. So like perhaps there's something that needs to come through, that needs to die, so that we can bring something else through, and we aren't letting that happen. You know, we're kind of like pretending that doesn't need to happen. And I'm saying this now and I'm thinking, I think I'm doing this. So I'm calling myself out here with this. I'm going to have to make some notes on that. So Pluto also very much linked with Scorpio in modern astrology. So we've just had that Scorpio full moon. So it's bringing those kind of scorpionic vibes of really deep emotions, definitely into like the unconscious. So it's kind of about like re-digging into that unconscious if we can, like finding methods that we can to kind of get in there and stop trying to fight against it, really, and allow. We need to surrender. We need to surrender with birth and with death. those processes happen with our bodies. So that's interesting as well. You know, we've got that body connection happening there as well. They happen like automatically with our bodies. We don't think about them. You know, we're not controlling the show from our heads. We are letting our bodies take us through that portal. And that's what we kind of need to do, sitting into our bodies and allowing things to come up and allowing things to be released, because we need to allow those things to be released. So it's like it's given us that and that extra opportunity to go back, and maybe where we've tried to go, oh no, that's probably okay, stick a band-aid over it, you know, it'll be fine. No, we need to go back and see where these things need to be released. But you know, we've got all this extra breakthrough energy happening at the moment, so hopefully that should be easier to do now. You know, it's supporting us to do that work. We've also got when Venus moves into Taurus, or then she makes an aspect with Pluto pretty much straight away, if I remember rightly. And then when Mars moves into Aries, it also makes an aspect with Pluto almost straight away as well. So they're both giving that kind of like personal boost to that energy. Yeah. Shannon says death reverse. Interesting. Oh, surrender. Frick. That's brilliant. And it is kind of that. It's like, oh, and sometimes it feels like, oh, I've done so much work. I just feel like I've really gone really deep and there's not more. And I'm tired and I don't want to have to do it. It's very much like when you give birth, I know, like, not everybody here is female or has given birth to a baby. Presume, you know, I'm not going to assume you all have that experience, but when you labor, often you do the kind of like the first part of labor where the dilation is happening, and then it moves on to like the second stage where you well, before you start to push, basically, before you feel the urge to push, then sometimes there's like a little gap before that, which sometimes they call it like rest and be thankful. But usually what I found, like when I've supported women through birth, is that point where they go, I don't want to do this. So like they dilated, they're ready in theory to birth their baby, but they're just like, oh no, I can't, you know, I've got this far now, but I can't do this last bit. I can't get over that kind of last hurdle. And it feels like that sometimes when we just got that whole all this like inner work stuff. But we do, like they always do. They always do it, and they're always delighted then when, you know, when they have got over that that shit, I'm not going to do this, I'll come back tomorrow kind of thing. But we need tools, we need techniques to get over that stage, you know, to get us past that stage. And one of the things that really helps, one of the reasons why having like a doula or a really lovely midwife in your birth helps, is because having somebody to kind of like mentor you through it, or, you know, if you haven't got a person available, we've got YouTube now, you know, we can look up exercises to help us release things on YouTube. We can read books, you know, we've got loads of resources. If you're in the membership, you know, you can lean on me in that membership as well to help us to kind of move these things through. We don't have to do it by ourselves. No, that's not true, actually. We do have to do it by ourselves, but we can have support as well, you know? So, yeah, that's something to think about. And it probably also relates in with that Mercury and Taurus stuff as well, that idea of communication as well, yeah. Simon says that's interesting because as an analogy, birthing can be applied to projects or goals. Yes, exactly. So we're not, and that's exactly it, isn't it? We're not just talking about birth here. We're talking about any threshold crossing. Whenever we're about to make a big breakthrough, we always have resistance. And the bigger the breakthrough that we're going to make, the bigger the kind of like, just the heights that we could get to, the bigger the resistance. It's just like, no, you can't do it. And we'll do anything else instead. You know, like we'll go and eat, or we'll go and like binge watch Netflix or something. We'll try and we'll say, no, I'm not going to do it today. So resistance is something that's coming up a lot, and the reason we get that is because like it's our body trying to keep us safe, isn't it? It's like, well, our mind kind of really more than our body trying to keep us safe, sort of saying, don't do that, you haven't done it before, that's dangerous. We're going to stick with the things we know. But obviously, if we only ever stick with the things we know, we're only ever going to do the same thing. So we can't ever do something different unless we can get over these thresholds. And the way that Liz says we stress clean the house, cleaning, oh my gosh, yeah, that's something that I definitely do. I'll tidy up, clean. I'll listen to podcasts. I'll do things that seem like they're productive, or even sometimes do things that are kind of adjacent to the thing that I kind of I'm scared to do. So maybe some kind of accountability as well. I think this like Pluto retrograde period, which is gonna last a little while, until October, you know. So we've got this kind of redoing this kind of death energy going on. Oh, hey Janetta, I just spotted you. We've got this, yeah, this whole vibe is going on for quite a long time. So we've got plenty of time to do this. Perhaps we need some kind of accountability. Perhaps we need some kind of support, you know, like definitely not like boot camp accountability. Probably Michelle can help as well with her life coaching and things like that, you know. And maybe if we do another session like on our goals as well, because we've been talking about our goals, we said that maybe we get together and do that in the summer solstice, so that would still be like aligned with this energy of like, I'm not going to avoid my goals, I am actually going to do it, and give us a little bit of accountability, perhaps gentle accountability, but still like not letting ourselves off the hook as well. Yeah, so we've got that. So we talked about the whole thing of Taurus. We talked about Mars being in its own sign, giving us that fiery boost, which is like, yes, good. It's good to have a bit of fire in the situation. We've got fire on Earth, that's really productive. Oh, Michelle says, yes, happy to help. We can definitely do another session. Brilliant, thanks, Michelle. Breaking through the procrastination. Yeah, it's hard to do, isn't it? It is hard to do. But we have to, because we are just literally just going to keep doing the same things if we always stay safe. I went to see this guy called Bear Grylls. I don't know if you've heard of him. He has like quite successful TV shows and stuff. My son is kind of like, he thinks he's really cool. And he started doing this series of like talks, I suppose, but it's kind of like a show, I guess. And we went to see that last night. And he's actually really nervous as a speaker, which I wasn't expecting. You know, after seeing him on the shows, he's like this survival guy. He goes out into the wilderness, and like he used to be in the Marines and things like that. And he's done all sorts of crazy stuff, you know, like jumping out of planes and going through deserts and rainforests and things like that. But you could see he was nervous when he got up to speak, you know, when he started to speak, and he got more comfortable as the evening went on, and I felt more comfortable as the evening went on because he felt more comfortable as well. You know, you could see him kind of relaxing into a little bit more. And he's only done, I think this was only his third kind of live show like that, but I think he's going to do more of it probably. So I think these were kind of the testers. We know one of the people who like in his crew, which is why we got tickets to the show, which was really cool. So we got to go and see him. But he was talking about like he actually fell. He was doing like jump out of an airplane, and he fell and broke his back. His parachute didn't open properly, and he broke his back in like 3 places. And apparently he was like 1 millimeter away from it severing his spinal cord, and he would have been paralyzed for the rest of his life. And while he was in hospital, he like needed something to motivate him. And like he's an incredible guy, obviously, because like he does all this stuff that other people just don't do, you know. He does all the kind of things and like things also that I feel like I don't want to do that. And I'm okay with that, you know. But while he was in hospital recovering, he remembered this vision that him and his father died when he was like, I think like a teenager. And he'd been really close with his father. So he remembered this, that they talked about climbing Everest. And he was like, I'm going to get better. I'm going to climb Everest. And literally like just months later, after he'd recovered, he managed to get himself into an expedition where they were climbing Everest. And he did it, you know. And he was talking about how, he's like, oh, people are always saying about their comfort zone. He's like, yes, you know, he's like, people say, oh, I've got to get out of my comfort zone a little bit, but then I'll go back into my comfort zone. And he's like, it's not a comfort zone, it's a comfort pit. And you get stuck in there, and you need to like claw yourself out of it as quickly as possible. And I was like, oh, how do I feel about that, you know? Because I definitely need some downtime in my comfort zone sometimes to be able to like regulate my nervous system and stuff like that. So I definitely need that groundedness. But yeah, I can see that how sometimes it can become a comfort pit, and how it gets really hard then to climb out of it because it's steep, you know, and we need to get out of it. And unless we're going to, yeah, it's that whole thing about changing, isn't it? If we want to change, if we want different results or a different life from what we're living now, you know, not necessarily a whole different life, but if we want to make improvements in certain areas of our lives, we have to start doing different things in those areas of our lives. That's just how it works. And so that's what we need to be working on. We don't need to. You can just be like, no, okay, I'll stay in my comfort pit. That's fine. That's fine. But let's be aware when we're choosing that, I think, you know. Okay, so I don't even know why I got onto that then. Yeah, I'm looking at my notes now where we are. So we talked about the end of the June. Yeah, so there's only one major thing then that I wanted to talk to you about, that is and this is a big deal, is that last third of the month, when instead of everything being piled up in Taurus, things start piling up into Gemini. So the sun moves into Gemini. Let me look at the dates actually of when everything's moving in. So the sun moves into Gemini on the 20th of May. Venus moves into Gemini on the 23rd of May. And then Jupiter moves into Gemini on the 26th of May. So like those three planets are moving into Gemini then. And Mercury, I think, is fairly quick after, but obviously not in May. It must be just at the end of the beginning of June, probably. Mercury's going to move into Gemini as well. So what are people saying? They said, I went to a concert last night for the first time in ages. All I thought was, I want to go home. Comfort pit for sure. Yeah, and I don't think I'm fully on board with it being like it's always a comfort pit and you always have to climb out of it, otherwise you're going to die in there. That doesn't resonate for me, but it did make me think, you know. Rebecca Jo says, I think the comfort becomes a coffin. Yes, that's exactly it, isn't it? That reminds me of one of the cards in the what's it called, the Santa Muerte Tarot as well. I think it's is it the Hermit card? One of the cards is like literally a person that is being nailed inside a coffin, and that's what it can become like. It's like inertia, like kind of force. It's like I'm there and there's nothing I can do. I'm in this place. But if we can come out of it, we can break out of it, then we can change things, and we can change things in ways that we only dreamed were possible beforehand. And we do need to dream them beforehand. I think we need to like dream it before we can kind of bring it in. But there's lots of things trying to stop us, and one of those things is our internal resistance. So like I said, the first 2/3 of this month, we've got all this Taurus stuff, which is helping us to get really safe in our bodies, get really grounded. That whole idea of being like grounded, home base maybe is our keyword. Or maybe embodied. Yeah, maybe embodied is our keyword for this month. And then that last third of the month, when we start to get all those Gemini activations, that's when all these ideas are going to come. It's going to ideas, you know, new ways of doing things, playful ways of doing things as well. Like Gemini is a very playful sign, and so we get to like kind of experiment with stuff. And like one of the things he was talking about as well last night, he was talking about like making mistakes and how you have to make as many mistakes as possible, hopefully not fatal ones. Like his line of work, like they can be fatal, but generally for most of us, our mistakes are not even remotely going to be fatal, you know. So why are we so scared? Why are we so scared to make them? Yeah, so let's do that work. Let's do that that grounding in our body work. And then we're going to be ready for these new ideas and that kind of activity, that mental activity, which is going to be coming up. And we've still got that undercurrent of that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius energy, which, like I said, is lasting until October, which is going to really help us to do that deep work, that deep inner work of bringing these things up and kind of processing them, working them through. Yeah. Jumping in pagan, I've worked really hard to have a sense of humor about mistakes. Yeah, and like if we can just laugh about it, or if we can be kind to ourselves about it, then that makes a massive difference. I've also been reading loads about like attachment theory and stuff lately, and a lot of people who've got insecure attachment styles, find it really hard to make mistakes, because like mistakes weren't tolerated as a child. So we need to like teach ourselves and like hold ourselves while we learn to make mistakes, and be kind to ourselves about that. Yeah, sounds like a lifetime of working through social anxiety. Push on through and laugh and live. Is it yeah. And that's where I kind of found it hard when he was talking about that comfort pit as well, because I don't believe in punishing myself. But he wasn't really talking about it in like a punishy kind of way. He was talking about it as in a kind of greater love for yourself kind of way. It's like, if you really love yourself, you will want to enable yourself to do these things that you want to do. Yeah. Yeah, Michelle said, I think for a lot of us as kids, sometimes our parents reinforce, and typical public schools do, that mistakes equal consequences. Yes. Yeah, I think school has got a lot to answer for in that as well, definitely, because there's like right answers and wrong answers, isn't there? And quite often teachers will do that thing where they'll ask a question that they've already got in their head what they want you to say, but it's like not immediately obvious what it is that they are thinking. Like, we're not mind readers, you know. And then if you say the thing that's not in their head, even though it's a perfectly valid answer, it's like, oh, you know, that wasn't the right thing. That wasn't what I wanted you to say. And so we learn to kind of like hold back as well, for fear that our answer is not the right answer, you know, which is really confusing as well. Oh yeah, Liz, I saw that in your moon poll that you had failures news. That's really interesting. So I'm going to pull some cards now as well. Oh, hey, Kate. That card hasn't come out for me out of the deck. So, yeah, I'll have to look it up as well. Failing Forward is a really nice book about moving through mistakes. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm loving this as well. These, because like recommendations of things like that, of like supportive materials to help us to do that as well. I've been doing a free training with Kate Northrup, who does stuff about like money, healing money blocks and things like that. And she, I'm dropping cards here, let me just pick that up. The Scorpio moon is my second house. So I'd seen that she was doing this training, and I was like, oh, that's really on point for my second house. So, you know, which is to do with like money and things like that. So I thought, oh, I'll do that because that'll really like tie in with that. And she was saying how a lot of this stuff to do with like money, or to do with any kind of shifting of beliefs, really, people tend to start with like mindset work, and it's like, oh, I need to change my mindset, and then that will change my reality, and that will change my outcomes, kind of thing. And she said that's actually starting, you're too there's stuff that we need to do upstream of that before you start on the mindset stuff. And she says the body stuff comes first. So I was like, oh my gosh, she's talking about all this. Like, I wasn't expecting this at all. I was expecting it to be like a money mindset kind of workshop, really. I'd never seen her work before. And it was just not like that at all. She was talking about all the stuff that I talk about, you know, like moons and embodied stuff and things like that. And I was like, oh, okay, this is really weird, but just really on point. And so she was saying that it's downstream. We need to work on our bodies first. We need to work on regulating our nervous systems first and feeling safe. And then when we feel safe, we are able to do that mindset shifts and things like that then. And I think that's the same. Like, I think the reason that Bear Grylls could say that about his comfort pit is because he does feel safe in his body. And I think that's a lot easier for men than it is for women, because we genuinely are not as safe in our bodies a lot of the time. So that feeling of safety, of being home in our bodies, is something that I think we need first, that kind of regulation first. Kate says, yeah, start with the body and the mind follows, definitely. One of the things I learned about growing up with absent parents, I had to trial and error, learn from mistakes. Yeah, how brilliant is that? Because like a lot of people who have absent parents would have learned different lessons and felt like, oh, nobody's ever gonna care for me, and nobody's ever gonna like support me or meet my needs and things like that. So we definitely can parent ourselves out of these kind of patterns that we've got and this trauma that we've got inside us. Yeah, okay. So I'm going to take 2 cards, I think. Oh, thanks, Netta. I'm glad it did. Okay, let's have a look. So cards for the energy of May. And I'm using the Goddess of Love Tarot, which Emily posted in the membership in our WhatsApp group, and I was like, I'm going to buy that deck. Okay. Okay. So these are very on point. So we have got the Four of Wands, this gorgeous, glorious Four of Wands actually, which has got like a fire at the bottom. Then we've got these 4 rose stems, which have almost got what looks like snakes, like slithering up out of them. And then there's above that, there's a full moon, or maybe the sun, and it's got this like cloud castle, the castle in the cloud. So I haven't read the guidebook properly for all of these yet. I just kind of dived in and started using it. So what I'm seeing here though for Four of Wands, like the Four of Wands is such a celebratory energy, you know, it's given us that like, we can, and it's also quite a stable energy. So like when we get 4s in the tarot, they're all quite stable energy, which you could frame as stuck energy. So I think it's like tying into that whole idea of whether it's a comfort zone or whether it's a comfort pit. But this time perhaps we are celebrating our kind of safety in our spirit, our spiritual safety, celebrating our spiritual safety and connection. And then when we've got that, we can then start to rise up and we can start building those castles in the air. You know, it's almost like a metaphor for the whole month, because we've got that, like I said, the first 2/3 of it where we've got that Rose, Venus, Empress, gardeny, earthy energy, which then switches into that Gemini head kind of energy. So it's like the foundations. And like obviously we've got the fire here, so we've got the kind of spiritual fire that's, and that Aries fire of Mars as well, kind of bringing things forward and then reaching up. When we're safe, when we're connected to Goddess, when we feel like we're kind of on our spiritual path and we feel safe in our bodies, we can then start to dream the things that we want to dream. So many of us are kind of not even able to access that kind of higher thinking, dreaming, manifesting kind of stuff because we don't feel safe. We don't feel safe. So yeah, I feel like it's celebrating that we can make these big shifts. We can make these big shifts in this month. In this month. And the other card that came out is the Maiden of Pentacles. So that is the Page of Pentacles, and that is very on point for like learning, ease and groundedness in our bodies, and ease on connecting with all of those Venus resources, you know, of connecting with our resources, learning about it. But we are only in the maiden stage, you know, we're not at our queen stage, or, you know, you guys may be. But I feel like in this month, we're working on kind of that learning, that kind of page. We've also got, like I say, that Mercury in Taurus as well. So like Mercury in Taurus is allowing that kind of communication from our body. We're going to do that body learning that is going to enable us to really like feel into our full resourced power, that kind of Venus power. Yeah. Such good. Oh, Rebecca said I was just listening to Castle in the Cloud. Yeah, and there's like Castles in the Air, isn't it? It's a song as well, which made me think of that when I saw that. But yeah, there is a castle on a cloud from Les Mis. Yeah, that's a sad song though as well, isn't it? But yeah, those are really good cards for this month. Really happy with that. So we are kind of like they're both minors. I can't remember what came out last month as well. But we have got these 2 minors, but we are doing the work. We're kind of doing the footwork this month to be able to get these things in place, get connected, get really safe. Let's get really safe, and then we can get really creative towards the end of the month when we move into that Gemini vibes. Yeah. Okay. So Ember says body femininity and safety asteroid Sedna is moving to Gemini today. Oh, interesting. Okay, so I don't look at the asteroids on when I'm doing these, because I think you start bringing in all this extra stuff and it does get a little bit thing. But in fact, Janetta was the one that, who said to me about Sedna, and that's really interesting because, yeah, that whole idea of like Sedna's story is a story of basically being bodily unsafe, like her own father cuts off her fingers. So it is, and like fingers are so Gemini as well. Wow, yeah. Yeah, lots of real connections of that with that as well. So if you want to look into that a little bit more, that would be really interesting. Her story might be a really good metaphor to work with as well, because she kind of turns it around and like her fingers become the sea animals, and she is, for me, she almost morphs into like the skeleton woman as well from in Women Who Run with the Wolves, where she kind of gets pieced back together. I kind of like to feel like that's the other part of her story. It's not, you know, they aren't actually connected, but like in my heart, those stories are kind of connected. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we are 5 minutes over the hour, 6 minutes over the hour, but I think I was a minute late starting. So I'm going to say goodbye, but that is, let's take this conversation into the, well, you can leave comments as well, definitely. But if you are in the Circle of Kindreds on Facebook, then please do bring that over into there, because that'll be really fun to kind of carry on. If you've got book recommendations and things like that as well, yes, please do. I will put these cards, I'll take photographs of these and add them to the blog post. And if you're on the Moon Day Magic mail list already, you will get a link to that on Moon Day. If you're not, then you can just click the link in the description, hopefully is in there, I think it is, and you can, and also the link to the Circle of Kindreds will be there as well, and you can sign up to get that so that you can have that overview of the month, which definitely goes through, like, I've talked about the big themes here, but it goes through like kind of step by step what you can expect kind of each day kind of thing as you go through. Yeah, oh, thank you guys. If you give me a little heart or a like or something, that would be really cool as well. It's been so lovely to hang out. I can see some little hearts shooting up, which is really nice. Yeah, so nice to hang out, and we will do it again next month. I'm also thinking of doing some like star sign, like, you know, horoscopes, really. I'm kind of playing with the idea, so that might be something that I'll do in Gemini month. But I'm also working on an astrology course, so there's a lot of projects going on at the moment, but it's all fun. It's been so lovely to hang out with you guys, and I will see you soon.